When I was younger, I had a lot of really dark thoughts. I didn't really fit into society, so I couldn't imagine a future for myself, and my whole outlook and my moods would spiral out of control. I got angry a lot and threw things. Sometimes I said things I didn't mean. It started as early as elementary school. Even much later, when I came out of it, I'd still fall into states of hopelessness and lack of motivation for a long time until I learned how to heal myself. When I was 19, my girlfriend of 3 months dumped me. It wasn't that serious, but it really got to me. It brought up a lot of old insecurities, and so I lost control again. I wondered why I wasn't good at anything, why I didn't feel more confident, why I wasn't funnier, or why I couldn't get good grades easily. I couldn't imagine why anyone would love me. There wasn't anything really special about me, so those thoughts kind of snowballed and turned into something really ugly. I rolled around in bed for a few days and skipped a few classes and felt sorry for myself. I didn't really have any idea what I wanted to do in the future, and anything I wanted seemed really unattainable. I don't really care to share the worst of my thoughts back then, but it wasn't just sadness or anger, they got much worse than that. When I wasn't a total mess, I was just in a habit of killing time. I went out and socialized with friends way more than I really needed to, but after I was dumped, I just didn't even leave the apartment. This wasn't my first experience with depression, but it was the first one after moving into a private dormitory, so my thoughts just got darker and darker. I became self destructive and I started pushing friends away. At one point, I realized that I was torturing myself and that this was a downward spiral, and I had to stop it somehow. There was beer and drugs, but I knew those wouldn't lead anywhere better, so I noticed that Japanese textbook that I had bought that was sitting unopened on my shelf. I thought maybe that would distract me from my thoughts. It wasn't like my thoughts suddenly turned positive at that moment. It was far from that. At first, it was really self hatred that motivated me. I felt like if I was going to be a useless shit, I might as well be a useless shit who could speak Japanese. But at the same time, I didn't think that I'd ever become fluent. It was more like a punishment for being so incapable. I just forced myself to study. Slowly, things changed. For the first time in my life, I spent an entire day absorbed in something that felt productive. I still wasn't in a healthy state of mind, so you can't say I really enjoyed it. It was more like a boot camp instructor who shouted at a trainee. I didn't really enjoy it at first. It was just something for me to channel my energy into so that I didn't start going back into those negative thought patterns. After about a month, though, I started to remember hiragana, the basic part of writing in Japanese. I could read some dialogues in the textbook. It wasn't easy, but with that level of focus, it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. That gave me a lot of hope, so I started to look forward to learning new phrases. I imagined speaking with native people, and without even realizing it, I started to imagine a future for myself. I didn't know how I would do it, but I decided that I would leave the country after I graduated, and that I wouldn't stop with Japanese. I'd learn Spanish, French, Hindi, whatever other language I could, and immerse myself in as many cultures as I could. I wanted to travel around and settle down in the country that fit me best. I couldn't imagine the details. I just knew that if I started studying languages, that opportunities would slowly show themselves. For the first time, I had something to look forward to. My thoughts slowly became less self destructive. I started to smile again and meet friends. We went around the city to try out new foods from countries we didn't know anything about. We watched foreign films and got to know some of the exchange students. Not everything in my life went according to plan. I still haven't learned Spanish or French or Hindi, but curiosity for the world and a skill to focus on really became a life raft for me. I probably would have drowned without it. Those issues took a while to fix, but at least for the time being, I had a future to dream of, and so I didn't lose sight of it. 4 years later, about a year into my life in Japan, I finished my first novel in Japanese. It was Nejimaki Dori, Wind Up Bird Chronicle by Murakami Haruki. It took me about 2 months of reading every day to get through the first volume. I used an electronic dictionary the whole way. I started the second and third volumes without a dictionary, trying to understand everything through context. When I finally finished, I felt pretty triumphant, but more than that, I realized that I wasn't the same person that I was back when I had started learning Japanese. I still had little bouts of self destruction, but now I had tools to come out of those old patterns. It was this realization that filled me with confidence and made me feel good about myself. It did feel good that I finished reading a book in a second language, but more than that, my entire approach to life changed. I learned how to channel negative energy into something positive. Life is good now. Shit still happens, but when it does, at least I know how to bring myself out of it. I finally feel like I have some influence over my own life. You may not be knee deep in depression, but I think that learning a language can really make things better and make life more interesting. Love you all. Peace.